All right. So this is Sam Harris, Liz Cheney, and Brian Stelter. Both seem to be rather anti Trump. I'm going to take a sip of water, folks. I'm getting a little bit thirsty. I apologize. Sorry about that. I didn't want to do that. But I think I want to start primarily. I want to start with Brian Stelter first. I believe his show, Reliable Sources. I'm going to close my window real quick. I apologize. I was getting background noise, so again, I apologize. The unprofessionalism. I welcome everyone Christian, Muslim, gay, straight, conservative, liberal, moderate, all kinds of open minded human beings who want to have an open and honest discussion. I know myself, I can let my emotions get the better of me. 2020, these riots, these lockdowns, these were very emotional times for a lot of people. And hopefully, we can discuss what is the best solution for human to human relationships. And again, what perhaps is the best solution. Again, if you have an ideology or you believe in what you're doing and you want to stop something, what is the best solution to stop that? So I'm going to go first with Brian Stelter. Brian Stelter's Reliable Sources is no longer with us. And I want to say that I cannot remember a time when news media behaved in the manner that it did. And I really saw it during the Trump years. And I wonder if it is generational. Maybe it's always been there and I just never noticed it. And the thing is, the internet started to basically criticize certain ideologies that had been established, and now these establishment principles were being challenged. Again, there's a whole kind of, I guess, a whole form of journalism that seems to be more into editorializing, preaching, and being very sanctimonious. And it's kind of a talking down to your audience. And Brian Stelter seemed to do that quite a bit. It seems like CNN does that a lot, and they do not often seem to invite guests with different perspectives and different opinions. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, there are people perhaps who believe that, you know what, the opinions that certain people have are too dangerous to be out there, particularly with regards to the virus, to the jab. And now we're hearing different information about the jab. And again, you know, I grew up a movie junkie and I grew up a news junkie. Since 1980, I mean, since I was a kid, like early 1970s, born in, born in the late 1960s, became a movie fan in the 1970s, and even older films. My father often took me to revival houses. but he was also, he had his hand in politics. He ran, he helped a Senate campaign for the Democratic Party, and he helped a congressional campaign in the Republican Party in his district. So he had his hands in both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. And he had his hands somewhat in the news media. And my father not only was a movie and historic junkie, but he was also a news as I was. One of the things I would do with him would be watching the news, watching Nightline. One of the things that I remember as a child is the Iranian hostage crisis. I remember Ted Koppel. I remember the way in which he behaved. And I remember, and I look at that today, and I look at the difference. I look at the difference of news media back then as today. And I could be wrong on this, but I don't observe the same type of behavior. And I wonder how much of that is generational. And some of that might have been when Trump got elected into office. But I saw it before that, where news media started to have a bent. And I think when the internet started to flourish, Breitbart was the first one that I remember who would challenge the mainstream narrative on things and the way in which he was treated. And then when Trump got onto the scene, kind of a mask came off. I want to say hello to Scott. Haven't been around lately. Haven't been doing shows lately. So I'm doing it. I'm doing it today. I'm doing it now. Hopefully Joe will join me. Love to hear from him. Love to talk to him. But yeah, Brian Stelter, reliable sources, is no longer with us. And I think the whole CNN newsroom, I think they were also involved in internet, social media censorship. I think Oliver Darcy, who works for CNN, and probably people behind the scenes, were also involved in big tech social media censorship. And Brian Stelter one time said, freedom of speech is not freedom of reach. And I don't know anyone who can't take that as an average person who wants to examine facts for himself and see for himself and decipher information. Who wouldn't take that as an insult? And he was someone who said that doing your own research could be dangerous. When is thinking and examining dangerous? How dangerous really is thinking? And again, these people will not really be interviewed by you, and it's very limited where they meet the people, where they can answer questions back, because I'm kind of curious to where this mindset came about. And also this last election, I guess you can't talk about it, and you can't necessarily talk about election integrity and how good or how bad it like how good or how bad it was. And I think if there was not a problem with election integrity, I think there is a problem with the manner in which the establishment, who just calls it the big lie, and the manner in which they behave towards those who have questions, why they double down, and the things that they tend to ignore, the things they highlight, and the things that they tend to ignore are going to anger the average person. And now we're going to someone, Liz Cheney. I'm working this backwards. I'm going from Liz Cheney, Brian Stelter, Liz Cheney, and then I'm going to end on Sam Harris. All three of these people intellectually disappoint me. But Liz Cheney started with the January 6th committee. And even Alan Dershowitz says that Trump did not commit an impeachable offense and he did not commit a criminal act. And she carried forward on this. I'm curious, by the way, if Liz Cheney would ever go, if she would ever go on Alan Dershowitz's show and give her perspective on the January 6th committee and give her perspective on, because Alan Dershowitz says this doesn't the evidence is not there for a high crime and misdemeanor. And he also objected to the way in which the FBI handled the Mar-a-Lago incident. And if Liz Cheney is truly sincere and she believes in what she's saying, she will go to someone like Alan Dershowitz, who is a Democrat, who is a staunch Democrat, a staunch liberal. He would go to him and give her evidence and give her case and even have a debate, maybe even a debate that could be paid for with a charity. And because she's a lawyer as well, if she believes in what she says, then this thing should be in an open debate with someone who is against what they're doing. And I don't know if there's any, more profound constitutional lawyer than Alan Dershowitz. Maybe there is one, but he is a person that believes that what Trump did is not like high crimes and misdemeanors, and that he incited a riot or that he incited an insurrection. There's even question on whether, wasn't this more of a riot than it was an insurrection? And that's another thing with CNN and Brian Stelter. This is one of the first times where I heard things like mostly peaceful protest. I've never heard these terms before. I think they were there during the first, I think the kind of the Wall Street protest in Seattle. There was a whole thing with the bankers and stuff, and they said that was mostly peaceful. But where the term mostly peaceful was normalized, it used to be when a protest turned into a riot, that's primarily what it was. And we're seeing the changing of words and the changing of terms right before our eyes. And the thing about this culture and this establishment, it affected me and people that I knew. It affected them personally. That they said, well, we can't talk about things because the people out there are very vindictive and they're very cult-like, and there's a hive mind out there that will attack you and will harm you. And what do you say to something like that? How do you address a hive mind that believes that they are so correct and so right that they don't want to hear you as a human being? And one of the things I ask people is this: is human to human, do I deserve due process? Do I deserve a presumption of innocence before you tell me that I'm guilty? I'm not even saying, by the way, that you legally have to do that, but is that something that you believe in when you accuse somebody of something? You know, whether they're a friend or there's somebody that you want to seek punitive action against. And also, if I offend you, is there an act of contrition within your heart? And do you hold those same standards for other human beings? That is my question to another human being. Like, do you hold these views? Do you hold these views just for me, or individuals that look like me? Or do you hold these views for all human beings? Are these standards for everyone? Or are they restricted to a certain group? Just out of curiosity. Now we'll get to Sam Harris. Sam Harris, for me, is the most intellectual in the bunch. He is someone who when I've listened to him, Joe Rogan once described him as being an intellectual black belt. But recently, he has disappointed me with regards to his behavior. And most recently, he was on the show Trigonometry. And he said, he was in favor of the censorship of the Hunter Biden laptop if it would have cost Trump the election. And he kind of meant like, well, any means necessary. There's a part of me that kind of understands that, because I believe, by the way, the conquest ethic is there. People do it because they believe that they have the right to do so, and sometimes they believe what they're doing is right and moral. And I've asked this question before, and I think both are true to a degree, but ego, profit, ideology, and I think ego and ideology sometimes go before profit, and they're oftentimes worse. They're oftentimes much more destructive than just a profit motive. Profit motives are primarily simple, but ideology and ego, I've been more hurt by that than I've ever been hurt by people who wanted a profit. When a person believes that they have the moral right to do something, that's when I've absolutely been harmed. And that's probably when I've harmed other people myself. And I have all of these things that I claim, that are destructive in others. I have to be honest and say they're in me. I had certain beliefs when I was younger, even as a middle-aged man, that I no longer have. Trial by judge or jury. And now, my heavens, okay, it started to kind of head out on me. And again, let's see here. No one deserves due process of public opinion, won't allow it. I don't know why Master of Rope necessarily believes that. I'm saying human to human. And if you have a group that wants to cancel someone or hurt someone, can that group appeal to you for due process? And is there an act of contrition when you go against certain things? You lose your temper, your ego gets the better of you. Is there a point of return for human beings? And I think Master of Rope is being funny, trial by fire, and it is fun to a degree. And trial by judge or by jury is what Dennis says. I'm glad that people are listening. Hopefully you guys can hit the like button and even share the video if you gain anything from it. But I also, again, and I know I'm repeating myself, but I have to be honest and say that all of the things that that I would get upset over other people, in many ways, I have done myself. I have behaved perhaps in the same way. And one of the things, I forget where I read it, but it said, basically, I've seen the beauty of, the ugliness of cruelty and the beauty of good, and all of those resound in me. And what part of society, what part do I want to put forward? Sure, you can be diplomatic and another person can be ugly to you. That doesn't mean that you have to be ugly to other people. And you can be firm, but you also have to, for me, anytime I'm firm or I start to get angry, I realize that I've done the same thing to other people. I've treated people in the same way. I don't do that anymore. One of the things that I try to do when I'm working with customer service is treat them with niceness and kindness, because I was at one time behind that desk, and I may one time be behind that desk again, and I want that treatment done to me as it's done to you. So I always try my best to treat other human beings the way I want to be treated. And I feel to a degree that the establishment is not necessarily treating, the media establishment is not treating the people with questions with a kind of dignity and respect if they were on the other side. And that's where the anger comes in at the media. But you also have to realize when you're conquered. And I've come to a different place and different perspective about self-defense and about fighting. I used to have a John Wayne mentality. That mentality is out the window. That mentality is foolish because, again, there are people that can defeat you. Now, I'm not a pacifist, but I also believe in fleeing from danger. I believe I will fight if I have to, but if a place gets to be dangerous, I will also flee. And I think that in general, many people that have questions need to have a bit of anger management, because these people, a lot of them, will abuse their power and they will often gaslight you. And that's what abusers do. And the thing of it is, if you do get angry and you blow up, you'll be the one in trouble, because they do have establishment power. And think before you want to be cute or want to be funny or anything like that. I think at this point in time, it's best to have an open mind to all kinds of things, and then question intellectually and mindfully on what is the best solution to the problem. And I've also, like I said, I believe this too, that and I've heard other people say that they disagree with me, but the conquest ethic is part of nature. We strive to survive. At this point, we do have resources, but before, human beings took resources from the weak by force. Now they do it through democracy. They vote and extract benefits for themselves by force. Not by force, but by vote. And then, the government uses force to do that. And now they forced us to wear a mask, and they forced us to take a vaccine and just comply. And we can't even, at this point, necessarily talk about what are the best solutions, how effective are these things, how effective are these implementations? Because human beings have questions when their lives are restricted, and our lives have never been this restricted. And our speech has never been this restricted before. And I ask these questions. What form of due process do you feel someone who's asking a question, a legitimate question, what do they deserve as a human being, human to human? You have power. You have the power to punish. You have the power to implement rules. What power do I have to ask questions on certain subjects as a human being? And then Scott, High Ridge Estate, says, I always make gains. That's good. High Ridge says he always makes gains. And again, I think it's good to ask questions, whether it be in the medical field, whether it be in the economic field. I think people should know things about economics, even if they don't necessarily agree with it. They should read Thomas Sowell. They should read someone with different perspectives. And someone, I guess Robert Reich would be on the opposite end of Thomas Sowell. They should read them both. And they should come to their own conclusion, even liberal economics. Read them both, come to your own conclusion. Because one of the questions I have for someone like Thomas Sowell or someone like Ayn Rand, the thing about human nature and other people wanting to be free, the collective hive mind wants to take, will take from you, and they'll make laws. So if you're just an individual and an army comes, and I'm just, paraphrasing, and you're an army and they take from you, how do you defend yourself? How do you defend yourself from a hive mind that is entrenched within the establishment? How do free people who want free and open discussion defend themselves? And Dennis says, I find it to be quite destructive with people who just want power and control. But that's something that is part of the human condition. The human condition, human beings want power and control. The human man, particularly the heterosexual male, wants to mate with beautiful women, and probably by nature wants to mate with as many beautiful women as he can. Now, we have a society that doesn't necessarily promote that, but I think there are other cultures that do. But as I'm looking around and as I'm beginning to kind of observe the society in which I live in, the nation, the country, and the culture, and I don't necessarily know if the culture is the people, art is the establishment that is so powerful, and they don't want to be questioned. And they have the means to punish. They have the means to force you to take medication, whether you think it's good for you or not. They have the means to force you, like if you say something on social media that they consider part of hate speech, they can punish you, and not necessarily with any kind of trial or any kind of open forum to explain to you why they believe that. And there's not a lot of transparency with regards to that. And I say this again, are you a human being? Do you have eyes? Do you have ears? Can you think outside of the box? Can you see the world around you? I mean, if I look at myself, my apartment, my room that I'm in, to my apartment, to the building, to the block, to my city, to my state, I'm like, I'm a speck of dust. I'm less than a speck of dust when we scope it out to the world. But the world, like it, human beings, the world, from my understanding, we're not logical human beings. We are social. We're social human beings, and I think we come up with logic when we're able to be social and able to be around other human beings. But when we're forced to be just a hive mind and think the way others think, and I've seen this, and I saw this during the 2020 riots, a hive mind of human beings who believed that they had the moral right they were doing chants, and that other people around them were rioting. And the manner of this hive mind. And now, I guess we can't study it and see how this brain thing, how it came to be, how it happened to become, because there were riots throughout all of, every major city, and even mid-sized towns had social unrest. And there became a normalization of riots in 2020, the likes of which I have never seen. Now, I was around in LA for the 92 riots. I thought they were bad then, and I thought the behavior was wrong then, and I thought the behavior was wrong now. And human beings at that time were not allowed to dissent. If you dissented to the riots and you dissented to what was going on, you could be canceled. You could be punished by the establishment powers that be. If you dissented to medication that is forced upon you, you are canceled. You are not allowed to work by the powers that be. This was governmental force upon you. And not only that, we are forbidden to question this medication in these medical operations. And then we are led by an establishment media that habitually gets things wrong and has to retract what they say and have been sued. And I don't remember a time when news medias, when when news media was under lawsuit the way it was. I don't remember a time, again, and I've said this several times, I don't remember a time when behavior from our elites behaved the way in which they did. It's almost like they don't want to discuss with you. They don't want to have an open and honest debate with anyone that thinks outside of the hive mind. And I go back to Sam Harris. Sam Harris, again, he spoke about Islam in Islamic countries. That's when I first recognized him. I recognized him on the Bill Maher show when he was talking about Islam, and he had it out with Ben Affleck. And then he went on the Young Turks, and Shank and Sam had a conversation. And Shank was no match for the ideological intelligence of Sam Harris. Again, Joe Rogan called him an intellectual black belt. But I don't see him as that today. I consider him to be somewhat of a moral authoritarian and someone who will side with the woke over Trump. And he sees Trump as a larger threat than the leftist woke mob. And I don't see any champion, someone who is able to champion against this hive mindset. Because again, these individuals do not want to converse with you. They don't want to talk to you. If you have a difference of opinion, I have seen almost close to physical fights with people not wearing masks to those wearing masks. People getting physically aggressive with one another over the mask mandates. And maybe they're effective. I don't know how effective they are. The 6 feet distancing, that might be effective. But why are we not allowed to discuss these issues openly and honestly? And then we're not allowed to talk, before we weren't allowed to talk about policing and law enforcement and behavior and crime. It's all a one-way street. And what do you do when it's a one-way street? Do you stick around or do you leave? And Dennis says that I need a walk through the forest. Perhaps I do. And now I see my thing going kind of blank. So I think I'm going to end the show. And I hope some of you enjoyed it. Again, my belief often, this is where I'll end on, that ego and ideology in many ways are often more powerful than profit. And if you want to get things done, sometimes you have to put that ego away. And you have to put away the idea of perfection, because perfection is the enemy of progress. If you want to overcome procrastination, perfection is the enemy of progress. I thank any of you for listening, those few people that listen out there. I haven't been around in a while, but I welcome you on, so long as you can give me respect. I don't want profanity anymore, because that just leads it to another level. I want people to have honest and open conversations with me. If you're willing to talk and you're willing to be respectful, I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to bury the hatchet. I know that I've been angry at some of you who've listened. I'm willing to let that all be bygones, bygones. But if that doesn't happen, then that's fine. I can go my own way. Again, I believe in a free and open society, and where human beings are allowed to talk to one another and hash out their differences, because we're all trying to live in this country. We're all trying to live on this earth, and we're all trying to do the best we can with what we have. And people are going to try to survive. And what is the best way to survive personally, with other people, and as a nation, and as a world? I thank you for listening. Like, subscribe, leave a comment down below, and also visit our website at transparencyandmerit.com. I thank you all very much for listening, and best wishes to everyone. Thank you.